Hello everyone, my name is Max, and on my channel we look at the current and future BJJ trends. If you want to be on top of the new, overpowered moves, sequences and systems, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. If at the end of the video you enjoyed yourself, please like the video as it supports the channel. Thank you. In today's video we're going to be looking at Tainan Dalpra's guard. Everyone loves doing a video on Tainan's passing, and with good reason. It's fantastic. I mean, just look at him go. Who wouldn't be entertained watching him go absolutely wing-wang? But how did he get on top in the first place? A takedown? It's very rare for him to attempt a takedown these days, and people are sheepish to pull, which leaves one thing: he pulls a lot. So the question becomes, how is he so effectively and quickly getting on top in the first place? For section 1 we'll look at 3 different guard pulling situations, and these are his opponent's responses to him pulling guard. So the first one we'll look at is 1 knee up, and then 2 knees down, and standing. From there we'll look at his transitions and tactics used in these situations. For the first clip we're going to talk about Tainan's standing posture that he uses to get safe guard pulls. He will typically have square feet with double collars. Double collars are great defensively and standing, as it makes your opponent's standing offense very difficult and allows you to recover easily from their takedown attempts as well. It also gives you the option to pull on both sides. He will start the pull by throwing his feet wide past his opponent's hips, so it's hard for them to start any side to side movement. This is where the double collars really starts to shine as well. It's doing a fantastic job of breaking his opponent's posture, which makes it difficult for them to get any offensive movement going. They additionally have to be very careful not to overextend their arms trying to get away. Now, he can safely feed to a 2-on-1 cross collar control and start to set up his guard structure, which he typically uses, but more on that later. The next example is a much looser pull, which appears to be a one-handed collar grip pull until you notice him grabbing his opponent's wrist. Again, he transitions to double collar, and this time his opponent decides to bring their knee down, which of course results in the close guard. Now looking at a situation where his opponent remains standing, Tainan gets double collar grips and gets to work, firstly throwing his feet wide and leaning towards his left side to prevent his opponent's knee slide attempt. His opponent settles on standing, and Tainan feeds to his 2-on-1 collar control, which I mentioned earlier, which gives him enough time to set up his pan grip de la Hiva and not get behind because his partner's posture is so compromised. Now I want to highlight something very important about playing de la Hiva, and this is when an opponent deadlifts and breaks grips. You'll see that each time his opponent breaks grips and raises their posture, Tainan feeds to a new grip. Once his opponent brings their posture forward, he is free to go back to his preferred collar grip. For the next part of section 1 we're going to look at his transitions off his guard pulls or his general initial attacks. So back to Tainan versus Ronaldo. Ronaldo is going to be pulling backwards. He is trying to deny the shin on shin and avoid his leg being pulled into variations of X guard. This means that attacks that make the most sense are going to be pushing attacks. The most common form of this is an opportunistic wrestle up, as shown here. This time he has got Ronaldo coming forward and struggling to retain his posture versus the double collars. He successfully gets to the shin on shin and then pulls into modified single leg X or low guard, which we'll touch more on later in another section. Finally, for section 1 we're going to look at his main attack against a standing opponent in de la Hiva, which is a front pummel. His opponent is trying to deny the inside positioning by going backwards. Tainan elevates his partner's knee, which would normally give him enough space to enter variations of leg entanglements. However, in this case the off balance is so strong his opponent is swept entirely. Now that we've gone over his initial attacks from pulling guard, we are going to look at his follow-up strategy for getting on top. This is where he will enter and use various types of leg entanglements or X guards. Firstly, let's take a look at front pummels from de la Hiva again into single leg X. Beforehand, we saw that if his opponents are pulling away from him, then he can heist and begin to sweep that way. Now we're going to see what happens when his opponents come back into him. Tainan is in pan grip de la Hiva, and his goal is to off balance his partner and get their right hand off of his de la Hiva leg or weaken it so that he can get his leg to the inside positioning. His opponent is doing a good job of keeping their balance and staying strong. Tainan is going to change his angle of attack / off balance. He does this by coming up to his elbow in a seated de la Hiva. This allows him to move himself around his partner's foot while his inside leg is generating pressure to bring his opponent's hand to the mat. Now his foot has a clear path to the inside. He begins to heist, but his opponent pushes back into him. Both of Tainan's feet are on the inside now, which means with his opponent pushing into him, he can easily enter into single leg X. In this example from earlier, Tainan is going to frame and pull his opponent's belt as he off balances towards the inside. His opponent isn't closely monitoring his De La Riva leg, and as a result he is able to enter single leg X quite effortlessly. For the second part of section 2, we're going to look at his entrances to modified X guard, or as it used to be called in combination with Spider De La Riva, low guard. I'll be calling it low guard for the remainder of the video, as I'd like to pay tribute to such an influential and fantastic grappler as Leandro Lo was. As shown here, simply put, it's single leg X with your inside foot on the outside. This allows for some very creative entries and transitions. As a quick side note, it's called neutral ashi and no-gi, as both athletes have leg attacks on each other. Let's take a look at an example from Lo himself in a World's Finals match. He's playing his iconic Spider and Pan Grip De La Riva, builds to a power prop or seated De La Riva as we saw earlier from Tainan, and pummels his foot to the inside as he off balances his opponent. Eventually he sweeps his opponent and goes on to win one of many world championships. Now that we've got a better understanding of this position, we'll take another look at this entrance from earlier. You really get to see the versatility in this position now. A shin to shin entrance gives Tainan an excellent opportunity now to start attacking from his low guard. This is an example of a live entrance that was shown in an Andre Galvao clip earlier. His opponent is trying to step over his leg in De La Riva, which is a good strategy and allows for many passing opportunities from headquarters. In order to make this entrance work, he has to first beat this arm and get his foot into a strong position like the bicep or inside it. Second, he has to off balance his opponent to get their hips close to his. You don't want to try this position without your hips under theirs, otherwise you'll be overextended. His first attempt is close, but his opponent's posture is strong and in good alignment, so it fails. Tainan resets back into Pan Grip De La Riva. Just because his first attack failed doesn't mean he shouldn't try and abandon this move altogether. Just like a boxer wouldn't stop jabbing if it missed once or twice, neither should an athlete stop going for a powerful move. Now, for a successful example, he beats this arm with his foot on the bicep, and his opponent has to stand close in order to keep his knees pinched. However, this means Tainan can grab the secondary leg and enter low guard successfully now, resulting in strong off balances and attacks from double pan control that eventually get him the sweep, as double pan control is one of the strongest sweeping positions in the gi. Similar to the last clip, Tainan needs to beat this lead arm with his foot and get under his opponent. He does this by off balancing his opponent to the side and overhead to get his leg inside and his hips underneath. From there it becomes another double pant control sweeping sequence and finds his way on top for the 2 points. Section 3 is going to address a central problem when trying to sweep someone in the gi from a leg entanglement, and how Tainan ingeniously overcame it. This grip is known amongst competitors but isn't often spoken about online. Firstly, I don't know who originally came up with it, but I can tell you who popularised it, which brings us back to Leandro Lo. Lo is against Romulo Barral, a highly successful and accomplished grappler in his own right. By holding this simple pant grip on the top leg, his opponent can't finish any of his sweeps, even with both pant grips controlled. Romulo can't let go of this leg, and he risks Lo pulling his leg out entirely. Romulo also has to be careful about letting go of the second leg, as he gives up a potentially strong sweeping position and risks Lo escaping or trying to pass. So they both have to sit here for over 3 minutes. Sweep attempt after sweep attempt, no matter what Romulo does, he can't get up as he needs his foot on the floor to get up. Eventually, he lets go of the secondary leg, and of course, Lo escapes and wins the match. Tainan is in the same position against the same troublesome pan grip, And here comes the solution that Tainan used in the finals of his first World Championship at Black Belt Adult. He swaps which side he's playing X-Guard on, effectively swapping which leg his opponent is holding. He does this by pushing into his opponent, beginning an inversion, and inserting his knee into their knee pits. He completes the inversion, and when he comes out on the other side, his leg needed to finish this sweep is completely free to move. His opponent is even holding the pant grip at the end of the sequence. Another angle now. Hip elevation, knee insertion, and finally the face bowler movement to finish the sweep. This is even featured in his X-Guard instructional and was a planned move and not just done in the moment as some people might believe. Before we move on to the next part of our video, let's hear a quick word from today's sponsor, X-Martial. They have top quality jiu-jitsu gear, a massive range of options to choose from. X-Martial sponsors over 300 athletes of every level. Additionally, they have given away over $40,000 worth of gear in 2023 alone. They've quickly become the most community-driven brand in the game. Use code BJJ Armstrong to get 10% off at checkout. Thank you X-Martial for sponsoring today's video. To finish this video, we will highlight other athletes implementing the same moves in their games. First, we will start with Tainan's teammate, Abate, as he's a big user of front pummels and will regularly attack them explosively. As shown here by doing big off balances to get his opponent's hands to the mat, and pummel his feet towards the inside where he eventually gets the sweep. Next up, we have an interesting transition from Cole into low guard for a sweep. His opponent is holding his sleeve and in deadlift posture, which makes it impossible for him to control the secondary leg with his hand. Instead, he swims his foot to the outside to bring his opponent down to the mat with both legs controlled for the sweep. This is probably one of my favourite transitions to watch, and it's Andy Murasaki using it in an absolute finals match. He perfectly off-balances his opponent, bringing their hand to the mat, allowing him, as we've seen time and time again, to bring his foot to the inside so he can heist and get the sweep. Lastly, we'll finish with an amazing use of low guard, which is being used as a form of guard retention by Mikey Musumeci. Firstly, Mikey gets hit with one of Bruno's classic X passes. He responds by getting a hook into Bruno's armpit and bringing in his side guard. He denies head control and watch as his bottom foot comes into play. His foot is now free and on the hip. All he has to do now is square his hips and bring himself under his opponent for the entrance to be complete. Little adjustment with the collar grip to gain access to the secondary leg. From here, he can fully go on the offense and begin to spin under and start attacking a beautiful bowler sequence, which I'll do a full breakdown of in the future. That concludes my video on Tainan Dalpra and his guard. Thank you to today's sponsor, X-Martial, and make sure to use code BJJ Armstrong for 10% off. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Take care.